Okay, so I have finished your final project preliminary list of sources, and I want to comment on the general things that I'm seeing that are worrisome. Many of you apparently did not look at my comments on your final project proposal, because one of the most common ones I made was, this is a great topic, but how are you going to trace it through the history of our course? And I say that because a number of you have chosen topics that you're not giving me any historical information or sourcing for in this list of preliminary sources. I appreciate choosing things like gun control, immigration, climate change, but remember that you have to look at that through the literal period of our course. If you're in History 111, that means it's got to cover the period from the ancient civilizations up through the 1600s. If you are in US 1, you've got to cover the 1500s to 1877, which means you've got to have at least 3 secondary sources that apply to that, and you've got to have at least 2 primary sources that are in that range. If your primary sources are not in that range, they don't count. You can use things from the period after that, but they don't count as the primary sources that you need. I'll also mention again, and as I state right here, this is the list of preliminary sources for History 111. But the same thing applies to 2111. If you are using Harari, Diamond, Frankopan, or Lepore, or the textbook for either course, you are certainly welcome to use them, but they do not count towards your 6 secondary sources. You still have to have 6 unique secondary sources that apply to that topic, and at least half of them, if not more, have to apply to the historical period. All right. The other thing I would mention is the list and identify means you have to talk about them. For those of you that just gave me a list of sources, that's not doing me any good. That's not telling me anything about them. And the citation for those needs to be a full citation to literally what they are, not to some summary about them. The other thing I would mention is that with your primary sources, you have to do the same thing. So I sense that a lot of you either didn't read the instructions here or perhaps went to some quick answer device. I had a lot of high AI ratings on these that were returned, and I'm not happy about that. I also had some of you who didn't tell me, who didn't go with what you told me in your final project proposal you were going to do, and you didn't email me to ask if you could change it. So, as a reminder, for your annotated bibliography, which is coming up very soon in week 10, you have to actually go by the format of the annotated bibliography instructions. You need to list the sources, you need to analyze the sources, which means you have to read the sources. You have to have sources that work in the time period of our course. And you have to have primary sources that apply in the time period of our course as well. All right. Again, you are certainly welcome to use the textbooks that I'm using in the course, but they do not count towards your 6 secondary sources. Those need to be unique. If you're having trouble finding things, email me and let me know, and I'll try to help guide you. If your source is something so specific that it's only in the modern age, think backwards about it and think about how it has applied in the past and what it is. If you're doing immigration, think about migration and immigration, which is something that we have discussed in great detail in all of the courses. If you are doing diseases, think about diseases from the past. If you're thinking about climate change, think about climate issues in the past, because there have been. Look into those areas as areas for sources. If you're looking at technology, go backwards. Think about the history of technology and about problems technologically that have existed in the past as well. Because the bulk of your paper should be a history of whatever your topic is, through the period of our course. All right, if you have questions, let me know. I will do a separate video on the annotated bibliography, which is coming up. It's due at the end of week 10, which I believe is next week. So be sure that you have some ideas going on, and please review my notes on your papers. If you got low scores on this, it's because you didn't look at what I said to you on your final project proposal, or you didn't do what you were supposed to do with the instructions for the list of preliminary sources. The grade for the list of preliminary sources was out of 10. It counts as extra credit. But the reason that I do that with this and with the final project proposal is because that annotated bibliography is 10% of your final grade, and the final project, no, 15% of your grade. The annotated bibliography is 15% of your grade, and the final project is 20. So these are big numbers. These need to be good, and they need to meet the requirements of the rubrics. So be sure that you're paying attention to that. I didn't just throw this out here for fun because I like to grade things, because as you can tell by how behind I am on grading, that would not be the case. So get on to what I sent back, look at my comments to you, and if you have questions about them, ask me. If you don't know how to see the comments, go back to that video I sent out last week about how to look at comments for assignments in the Turnitin window. That will tell you how to go to the Dropbox, click on the Turnitin score, which opens up the document in another window, and then you click on the window to bring up the overlay, which is where my comments are. They're either in a text box, which means it's a little blue thumbnail with a white speaking thing in it that you click on and it will open it up. Or for some of you, I just did text blocks also, which will just appear. If you click on the overlay, they'll appear. But check those, and if you still don't understand what I'm asking you or what I'm saying, let me know, and I'll try to explain it in more detail. But this annotated bibliography is a big deal. So it needs to be more thorough than what a lot of you have given me so far, and it needs to have the actual sources that you can use, not ones that don't work in the time period of our course. All right, if you have a question, let me know.